we have Ken Seeley with us, and I'm Abel.
And I'm Allie. We are Young, Dumb, and Sober, and we are doing an interview with Ken Seeley from Intervention 911 on behalf of Soberocity, which is an online community
that connects sober individuals to blogs, events, and sober influencers. And also, we want to announce that Soberocity will be having a giveaway as a kickoff to the partnership Soberocity and Young, Dumb, and Sober. Today we have Ken Seeley.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, how you doing?
And so we would like to get to know you a little bit first. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Okay. So I tried to get sober for many, many years, and it just didn't work. AA didn't work for me for a long time. And it was just because I didn't completely surrender. You know, you have to completely surrender with, 2 feet jumping in. I was not doing that. I was like, I'll try it out. It'll see how it goes. And so for 4 years in and out of AA, and it didn't work until I finally got, I hit my rock bottom where I got fired from my job. And I said, okay, I'll try this stuff, and I jumped in with both feet and checked into a treatment center. And when the doctor told me I was dying from a disease, I thought, I was like, oh my God, what kind of disease do I have? And it's rare. It's different than anybody else. It's probably never anybody heard of it, because I'm so special, right? You ever hear that?
Yeah.
We are too.
Yeah. I'm so special. I got this rare disease that I'm going to die from. And he comes back and he goes, you're a drug addict. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is he talking about? And back then I was watching a lot of my friends die of AIDS. So I knew watching people die that I was very close to it. And I didn't have HIV or AIDS, but I knew I was really close to dying. So that's what made me jump in with both feet and say, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And that's when I started working a program. And July 14th of this year, I got 30 years sober.
That's incredible.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. But I still, to this day, I'm out here in Maui right now, and I go to AA meetings here. I put my recovery first today still after all this time. So it's the most important thing in my life, my recovery.
I love that. I definitely can relate to having to put it first. Somebody told me that if whatever you put before your recovery, you're going to lose anyway.
Yeah, and I've watched it happen. I've seen people with 30, 40 years of sobriety, and they relapse. So, you put your stuff in the back burner thinking that you got this and your recovery's all fine. And in all reality, it's never fine. I'm going to have this disease the rest of my life. I go into my normal, MO is to go into the negativity because of the fear. I've had that fear since I was 4 years old, and that fear is pounded into my brain where it's never going to go away. And so working a program and working on trauma and doing all that kind of stuff kind of gives me control of the volume switch. So when I'm in my addiction, that fear is running so rampant. The only thing that I know how to turn it down with is with drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So let me turn down the volume. Drugs and alcohol will turn that down. And now the modalities and working a program of recovery, that gives me the ability to turn that down, the trauma that has happened, but it'll never go away. I'll always have it the rest of my life. But just being able to have the control to turn it down is amazing.
Have you heard about the Sober Curious movement?
No, I'd love to hear about it.
So it's basically somebody who identifies as sober curious means they know that the experience of that consuming alcohol doesn't make them feel great, and they choose to not drink it often. So they more or less are experimenting with sobriety. What are your thoughts about the Sober Curious movement?
I like it because I think that, as long as you're evaluating and looking internally for anything, right. Because I mean, I remember when I first got sober, before I got sober, before I jumped in with both feet, I said, you know, something isn't right in here. And I knew it wasn't the drinking or the drugs, because that's the only thing that made me feel connected to other human beings.
Mm.
So if that's my connection, my peers and my friends, everybody that I loved, you know, they would party with me. So if I take that away, then I'm losing my connection with society. And I that wasn't the answer. So I kept saying something isn't right, something isn't right. And in my gut and my soul, I knew something wasn't right. And so I tried 12 steps for homosexuality because I'm a gay male. And I was like, well, maybe if I wasn't gay.
Same, same.
Same.
Oh, oh, great. Wonderful. I like your shirt colors.
Ew.
Demonstrating, representing.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, being a gay male, maybe that's what's not right. Maybe if I was straight, then I wouldn't have this discomfort inside. And so I joined 12 steps of, you know, homosexuality in LA. And, you know, you learn how to, you know, you work the 12 steps on how not to be gay. It was,
Wow.
okay, it was back in 1987, 88, around that time.
Oh.
So I joined it, but really what I was there looking for the relapsers.
Right.
I was not really interested in it, and I was like, well, how do I change my God-given feelings that I was born with? That isn't going anywhere. So shortly after, I realized that wasn't the answer anyway either. But if somebody is looking for something internally to change them, you know, to make a change because they acknowledge something isn't right. Yeah, Sober Curious, that's a great place to start. Something isn't internally right and you want to figure out what it is. Why not try sobriety?
It's a seed that's planted.
You know, and there's a lot of movements also right now that sober is fun.
That's kind of our mantra. We try to focus a lot on people who are young in recovery. You have experiences being young in sobriety. What was that like for you?
When I was young, it was really, really difficult because, you know, my story is about like when I was 4 years old and I left the house, I was bullied. You know, so from 4 to 13, those 9 to 10 years, I was bullied every day I walked out my front door. So I was scared to death of my own shadow. I was scared to death of the world, of everything. I only felt safe when I was with my family. So all of those years of feeling like, you know, am I going to come home alive? Am I even going to make it home? You know, that fear of that kid. And then at 13 or 14, when I tried drugs and alcohol, I finally felt like I connected. I was like, oh my God. And then when I learned how to sell drugs, people really connected with me. They were like, they wanted something from me. So they would, you know, they would say, oh, let's hang out with Ken. He's got all the drugs. And then I finally felt that sense of community and connection that we all crave. And then when ecstasy came around, have you, either one of you tried ecstasy?
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I know that you've done Molly or E a couple of times.
Yeah. I mean, I was always just the type of person. I always wanted that connection. That's what I was always craving, is the disconnect from the internal chatter and the connection with other people, because it kept me out of my head. So for me, stimulants always just kind of kept me going, and especially like ecstasy and all these other party drugs, it was just so easy to be around other people. Because that's what I always wanted. I never wanted to be alone by myself. So for me, it was definitely, it helped me feel like I could connect with other people.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, is as human beings, that's what we crave, is we want that connection with other people. And as a 4-year-old being bullied till 13, I was not having that connection. And so ecstasy and drugs gave me this false reality that I was connecting with other people. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. People do like me and they do care and they are loving. They don't all beat you up. So once I had that feeling and that internal, and then you tell me, well, you can't do drugs or drink anymore. I was like, well, this is the only thing that makes me feel safe. So what do you mean you're going to take this away? And so it took many, many years of working a program to even understand, number one, that there was a trauma. But then and understanding that what I was craving is human interaction. And I would get that when I was using drugs and alcohol, but it was all false. And you hear it all the time when people get sober, they're like, well, my real friends weren't even there. They were all drug friends. And so they realized that they wanted something from them. And that was what their relationship depended on. And when you get into recovery, you have to take that leap of faith to say, okay, I want to try something different to have that connection with human beings. And that's where my experience has been. The relationships with humans are built with trust, honesty, love, compassion, all of those things, because we all identify that we were there in that pain at one point in our lives. So doing our steps and talking about the people that we hurt and making our amends brings that real form of connection that we're all craving. And it brings it to a point where now we're getting stability. And the problem with it is we have to still work on it the rest of our lives and never give up on it, because if we do, we end up going back to old behaviors, because the easier, softer way is just take a pill. That's easy. Then you don't feel, when you take pills and you do the heroin and the opiate there for this individual that I didn't even know, you know, just knowing that it meant something to him gave me a high that no drug could ever give me. No, so that's what volunteering is really about, is you do stuff for organizations, anything that you believe in, and the return that you get, you know, by giving your all for free, your return that you're going to get is that human connection,
Right.
that human bond that we're all creating. Ecstasy never gave me that high. I never got, I mean, I got some really good highs on ecstasy, but never was it permanent that I'm talking about it 30 years later.
Right.
Never was it that impactful in my life. And that's the gift of recovery.
As far as, you know, people in the LGBTQPI plus community, do you see that there's like a connection there? Because we hadn't really even like noticed it until Soberocity spoke to us. Like, you know, you guys are kind of speaking to a crowd that is marginalized at this point, not just LGBT people, but LGBT people who have addiction and alcoholism and who want to get sober, but the community is so weighed down with drugs and alcohol that I feel like sometimes LGBT people have it even more difficult when it comes to getting sober, because like those safe spots that you were talking about, for me, it was very much in the bars in the Village in New York City since the time I was a teenager up until like my early 20s, because it was the only place I knew that I could meet gay women in the first place. And I knew I also wouldn't get hit on by men, and I could get drunk. So it was just like a wonderful combination of things. But, you know, all that time spent there, I mean, it does damage, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's painful to see that, you know, for gay and lesbians, I think the problem is that society's telling us we're not supposed to be this way. So all the messaging out there tells us that, you know, especially when I went through it, that, you know, it's wrong, it's horrible. I mean, today we're lucky. There's so many TV shows that have gay character, lesbian characters, so they make it more normalized. So it's a little bit easier for that kid that's coming out of the closet, but it's still not easy because the rest of your family, the norm is that you marry somebody of the opposite sex and you have a family. And so all of a sudden you're feeling that you're not normal. You're not like the rest of society. So that's adding to our trauma. That's saying, you know, you're different, you're less than, you're not as good. So now those tapes start playing in our heads, and it's not the normal alcoholic over here, the straight one, isn't hearing those tapes.
Right.
You know, they're hearing their other traumas that they've experienced. Maybe it was physical or sexual abuse. They're feeling that type of trauma, but they're not getting the ones that we're inheritedly given automatically.
Right.
Automatically, we're given that one. So I think that adds to our community that, you know, it just takes another level of trauma that brings us, you know, to a reason that we have to drink to numb that voice out, that we're not good enough. You know, we're not like the rest of the world. We're different. You know, I remember my prayer being every night, God, just take me. Just don't let me wake up tomorrow. I don't want to live another minute in this world. It is a fire alarm going off. Sorry about that. They said the hotel is safe. So what was the question?
So what's your best advice for helping a newly sober person navigate their sobriety?
Who are like fresh into it, just kind of starting.
Yeah.
What's advice? I love that. You know, if you're just fresh and you're starting, you know, be curious. Just be curious. Come into it with that you deserve a better life, because you know, I have a friend, somebody right now that's out on the streets, homeless, you know, in our community. The way he puts it is, I like the freedom. I like not having to show up at work. I like not having to be accountable to anything. And I just, you know, live as, you know, as free as can be. But in all reality, drug addicts and alcoholics don't think. They think they have freedom with using drugs and alcohol. But really, you're imprisoned. You know, as an addict and alcoholic, you're imprisoned every single day. You get up and your job, you may not have to go to a 9 to 5 job waiting on tables or whatever I had to do in early recovery. You may not have to do that, but your job is to figure out how do you get the money to get your fix, period. That's the first thing on your mind the minute you wake up. So you are not free. You are in prison and you think you're free, but the reality is that your life is a living nightmare and you're like a hamster where every single day the same thing happens. How do I get my drug? How do I not let my boss know I'm using? How do I, whatever it is, how do I hide this? How do I not show up at that family event so they see me? There's that vicious, you're in a hamster wheel that will never get better until you either, like they say in the program, jail, institution, or death. So you're going to end up in one of them. You're going to either end up locked up in jail because you got caught. You're going to end up in a psych ward, 5150 in California, they call it, or you're going to end up dying. And 200 people a day are dying from this. So those are your three options of where you're going to end up. But if you get into recovery, your dreams become reality by working the program. So you may not be free where you're able to do anything and live in the streets and come and go as you want and have to be accountable to a job. Again, you're accountable to finding that drug every day. So you're accountable to showing up for a job, but your dreams become a reality. And so I always say, what are your goals? Shoot for the stars and go even further, because I shot for the stars and I went further. And now I'm shooting further than the stars for my goals and my dreams, because I know they will become a reality if I put my recovery first. So all I have to do is work my program of recovery, and my dreams, I surpass my dreams. Like, I don't know of a dream that I haven't surpassed. And that's why, have you guys ever heard of this one? I love this one. Anybody with financial insecurity, which is a big one, take a check out of your checkbook and write an amount of how much money you would like to be able to cash that check. So I'm going to write a check for this amount and say, this amount would make me feel comfortable, and I'm going to be able to cash this check one day, not in pieces, but one day I'm going to be able to go to the bank and hand in that check and cash it. And I did that when I first got sober. And I only wished that I would have raised that amount to a higher amount, because I could cash that check now.
Wow.
So that was my dreams becoming a reality just by working this program.
Right.
And everybody deserves that. Every single human being has a number in their head what would make them comfortable. And every human being has a dream that's completely different from everybody else. So put those down and shoot for that. And all you have to do is work this simple program of recovery, and miracles. Have you not seen miracles in your recovery?
Every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Every day.
Every day.
Today's a miracle that
Yeah.
that we're doing this.
This is a miracle, yeah.
We were thinking about it. We're like, oh, this is so weird. Like we never thought that we'd be doing like some of the things that we're doing today. And it's, and like you said, aim for the stars and go beyond.
Yeah.
And this is just the beginning for us. So like, we're excited of all the things that we're going to be able to do if we put our recovery first, like you said. And that's what we're trying to do here, and obviously helping other people to do the same.
Thank you so much for sharing your message. I love that we're ending this with that like super, super positive notion of just like shoot for the stars, but go even higher. Or thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah, thank you.
Goal. Thank you for doing all this work. I mean, getting the message out there, social media, audio, video, all of this. It's the fastest way to reach the person that's suffering. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And thank you. It was really nice meeting you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.